This is Commercial Transformation, the podcast exploring how modern businesses redesign their commercial systems to scale, adapt, and perform. From strategy to execution, structure to flow, we break down what actually drives sustainable growth. Produced by B10.
Last episode, we pulled apart the reason commercial models break. We talked about misaligned incentives, disconnected functions, revenue systems built for a world that no longer exists. And if you've been in a commercial leadership role, or if you've watched one fail, you'll know that the moment when you realize the problem isn't a person, it's the architecture. So today, we go into the build. We're going to talk about what a well-designed revenue system actually looks like, not the theory, the mechanics, the levers, the layers, the logic. And we're going to be specific enough that you can pressure test your own system against what we discuss. Let's get into it. Before we get into design principles, let's establish what we mean by commercial architecture, because this phrase gets used loosely. Commercial architecture is the structure that determines how your business creates, captures, and grows revenue. It encompasses 4 interconnected elements: your go-to-market model, how you reach your customers; your revenue model, how you charge and what for; your customer success model, how you retain and expand; and your commercial operating model, how marketing, sales, and success actually work together. Most businesses have all 4 of these, very few of them designed to work as a system. That's the gap. Think of it like plumbing. You can have great pipes, you can have great water pressure, but if the pipes don't connect, if the pressure isn't calibrated, if there's no flow regulation, you either get a trickle or a flood. Commercial architecture is the plumbing design. And most companies are working with pipes that were laid at different times by different people with different objectives. Now, let's get into the principles. I want to give you 4 that are not aspirational, they're structural. These aren't things you aspire to, they're things your system either has or doesn't. Principle 1, the customer value is the unit of measure. The most common design error I see in revenue systems is this: the system is built around internal metrics that aren't connected to customer value. Quota attainment, deal velocity, MQL volume. These metrics are proxies, and over time, teams optimize for the proxy rather than the proxy was meant to present. Research from Bain & Company consistently shows that companies who lead on customer value metrics, things like Net Promoter Score, customer lifetime value, and expansion revenue, outperform their peers on total shareholder return. Not because NPS causes returns, but because customer value orientation reflects a system that's aligned to the right output. Practically, this means designing your commercial system around a clear answer to one question: what does value look like for the customer at each stage of the journey? Not what do we want to sell them, what are they trying to accomplish, and are we helping them accomplish it? When you get that right, retention goes up, expansion becomes natural, and acquisition gets cheaper, because your customers become your salespeople. When you get it wrong, you get churn, discounting, and an acquisition treadmill you can never quite get off. Principle 2. Growth must come from multiple motion types. One of the clearest findings in modern-day SaaS and B2B commercial research is that companies that rely on a single growth motion are more fragile than those that combine multiple. OpenView Partners popularized the concept product-led growth, where the product itself drives acquisition. McKinsey and others have documented the rise of ecosystem-led growth, where partner networks create compounding distribution. And the traditional sales-led motion remains dominant in complex enterprise. The point isn't that you need all three. The point is that designing your revenue system around only one makes you brittle. And the transition between motion types as your company scales is one of the most common sources of commercial breakdown. Here's how to think about it practically. At early stage, sales-led is often the right motion. You need direct feedback. You need to learn fast. As you scale, product-led layers in. You want your product to do some of the selling for you. As you reach maturity, ecosystem and product-led growth become significant multipliers. A well-designed commercial architecture anticipates these transitions rather than being caught by them. Principle 3. The revenue engine is a loop, not a funnel. We've been talking about funnels for, 30 years, maybe more. Top of funnel, middle of funnel, and bottom of funnel. And funnels are useful, don't get me wrong. They describe a linear progression through stages. But they're also fundamentally limited because they treat acquisition as the endpoint. Revenue falls out from the bottom of the funnel, and then what? The reality of modern B2B revenue, and this is well established in research from Bessemer Venture Partners and others, is that real revenue in most businesses isn't the initial transaction. It's the renewal, the expansion, the referral, and the repeat. For SaaS businesses, net revenue retention above 120% means you grow even with 0 new customers. That's the loop. Designing for the loop means thinking about the post-sale journey as seriously as the pre-sale journey. It means your onboarding is a commercial function. Your customer success team is a growing function. Your product roadmap is informed by expansion potential, not just feature requests. When your system is designed as a loop, every part of the business is contributing to revenue, not just people with quotas. Principle 4. Alignment is an architecture problem, not a culture problem. This one is perhaps the most important and the most frequently misunderstood. When marketing and sales aren't aligned, when sales and success are in conflict, when product and commercial teams aren't speaking the same language, leaders tend to reach for culture fixes, team building, communication workshops, and better meetings. These can help at the margins, but the root cause of commercial misalignment is almost always structural. It's that the teams have different definitions of success, different data sources, different incentives, different handoff criteria. When you fix the structure, you create shared definitions, shared data, shared accountability. Alignment tends to follow because the system stops rewarding misalignment. Harvard Business School research on organizational design consistently shows that structure precedes behavior. You cannot reliably create collaborative behavior in a system that structurally rewards competition between functions. Build the architecture first. Okay, so we've got the principles. Now, let's look at the components. What does a well-designed revenue system actually contain? I'm going to walk you through 5 core components, and for each one, I'll describe what good looks like and what broken looks like. Use this as a diagnostic. Component 1, the ideal customer profile and segmentation. On the good side, your ICP is specific. It is evidence-based and often updated. You know which customer segments generate the most value, not just the initial revenue, but in lifetime value, expansion rate, and referral generation. Your segment drives resource allocation. You spend more acquiring customers who behave like your best customers. On the broken side, your ICP is aspirational rather than empirical. You're targeting the customers you want, not the customers who actually succeed with you. Your acquisition and retention data tell different stories. The customers who were easiest to close have the highest churn. This is one of the most expensive misalignments in any commercial system. Component 2, value proposition and positioning. On the good side, your value proposition is outcome-based and differentiated. You can articulate not just what you do, but what changes for the customer as a result, and why you're the right choice versus the alternatives. Critically, this is consistent across every commercial touchpoint: marketing, sales, onboarding, renewal conversations. On the broken side, your value proposition is feature-based and generic. Marketing leads with capability. Sales leads with price. Success leads with process. The customer hears 3 different stories and struggles to articulate why they chose you. This is a structural problem. It means your value narrative hasn't been designed. It's been left to each function to improvise. Component 3, the go-to-market model. On the good side, your go-to-market model is matched to your buyer's decision-making process. If your buyers do significant research before speaking to anyone, your digital presence and content are doing real commercial work. If your deals require committee consensus, your sales process maps to that committee's dynamics. You meet the buyer where they are rather than forcing them through your preferred process. On the broken side, your go-to-market model was designed for a buy-in behavior that no longer exists, or was designed for a different market than you're in now. A classic example is a field sales model in a market that's moved to digital-first buy-in, or a transactional sales motion trying to win complex enterprise deals. Go-to-market and buyer journey need to be continuously recalibrated. Component 4, the commercial operating model. On the good side, marketing, sales, and customer success have agreed definitions for key terms. What a qualified lead is, what a successful onboarding looks like, what constitutes a healthy account. They share data. They have a rhythm of collaboration. Handoffs are documented and accountable. Incentives, while different in structure, are aligned to shared outcomes. On the broken side, each function has its own definitions, its own data, its own story. Leads are passed without qualification criteria. Onboarding is owned by no one. Success metrics diverge. Marketing reports on MQLs, sales reports on ARR, or annual recurring revenue. Success reports on CSATs, and nobody has a complete picture of commercial health. Decision making is slow because data is not trusted. Component 5, the revenue intelligence system. On the good side, you have a single trusted source of commercial truth. You can see the full customer lifecycle from first touch to renewal in one view. You have leading indicators, not just lagging ones. You know when a deal is at risk before it's lost. You know which customer segments are expanding and which are contracting. You use data to make decisions, not to explain them after the fact. On the broken side, your CRM is a graveyard of incomplete data. Forecasts are based on gut feeling dressed up as pipeline coverage. You find out about churn when the customers don't renew, not when the warning signs appeared months earlier. Different teams pull different numbers from different systems and argue about which ones are real. Your commercial intelligence is retrospective rather than predictive. So, where to start? I want to be honest about something. When I talk to leaders who are trying to improve their commercial architecture, the biggest mistake I see is starting with solutions before diagnosing the problem. They hire a new head of sales before understanding why existing salespeople aren't performing. They invest in a new CRM before fixing a data quality problem that will poison the new system as readily as the old one. And to be honest, this is something I see quite often on LinkedIn. People always, a couple of times a week anyway, they post about recommendations for a CRM system. And quite often you get hundreds of replies where people recommend a CRM system, be it HubSpot, Pipedrive, Close, Capsule, etc. And they're all great systems, but nobody pays attention to the actual process of the business, how it operates, what their sales models are. And that's dangerous. The diagnostic should come first, and there's 3 questions. The first question is, where is the revenue leaking? You can usually find this by mapping your customer journey and asking where value is not being realized. Is it in acquisition? You're not reaching the right buyers. Is it in conversion? You're reaching them, but not really convincing them. Is it in onboarding? You're convincing them, but you're not getting value fast enough. Is it in retention? They're getting value, but not perceiving it. Is it in expansion? You're retaining, but not growing accounts. Each of these has different solutions. The second question, what does your data actually tell you? And what data are you missing? Dig into your cohort analysis. Look at customers who were acquired 12 months ago. What percentage are still with you? Of those who left, when did they actually disengage? Look at expansion rate by segment. Look at sales cycle length by deal type. The data will usually point you toward the structural fault. And the third question, where are your functions working against each other rather than with each other? This is often the hardest to see from inside the organization because each function has a reasonable explanation for why the problem is somebody else's. An external perspective helps you, not because outsiders are smarter, but because they're not defending a position. Once you've diagnosed, you can redesign. I'm going to give you the framework for this. 5 steps that I think will hold up whether you're scaling or trying to professionalize your commercial function, or an established business trying to retool for a changing market. Step 1, redefine your customer journey from the outside in. Not what your process is, what the customer experiences. Map every touch point from first awareness to renewal and ask at each stage, what does the customer need here? And what are we delivering? The gaps are your design brief. Step 2, rebuild your commercial definitions from shared first principles. Get marketing, sales, and success in a room, or these days on a call, and agree on definitions that underpin your commercial system. What is a qualified lead? What does a successful customer look like at 90 days, for example? What constitutes an account at risk? These aren't semantics, they're the foundations of shared accountability. And step 3, redesign your handoffs, every transition point in your commercial system, from marketing to sales, from sales to onboarding, from onboarding to success, is a potential point of value loss. Design explicit handoff protocols. What information transfers? Who owns that? What the receiving function needs to continue the customer experience seamlessly. Most companies leave these to informal practice. That works when you're small and everyone knows each other. It fails when you scale. Step 4, align your incentives to shared outcomes. This is where it gets politically sensitive because incentives are tied to how people are measured and compensated. But the principle is clear. If you want marketing to care about revenue, give them revenue metrics. If you want sales to care about retention, make retention part of the sales compensation structure. If you want success to drive expansion, give them expansion targets. Don't design collaborative outcomes and then incentivize individual silos. The math doesn't work. Step 5, build the intelligence layer. Decide on what you need to know. Agree on how you'll measure it. And invest in the systems and disciplines to make the data real and trusted. This doesn't mean a massive CRM implementation before you're ready. It means being honest about what your current data tells you, identifying the most critical gaps and closing them systematically. Data quality is a commercial asset. Treat it like one. I would like to close with something I think is the most important mindset shift in commercial transformation. And it's this. Your revenue system is not a fixed thing. It's not infrastructure you install once and maintain. It's a living system that needs to evolve as your market evolves, as your customers evolve, and as your business evolves. The companies that sustain commercial excellence, the ones that don't just have a great year but build durable compounding growth, they are the ones who build the capability to redesign their commercial architecture continuously, who treat commercial transformation not as a project but as a practice. That requires leadership attention. It requires cross-functional trust. And it requires a willingness to question the system that got you here when it's no longer getting you where you need to go. The architecture we've talked about today, customer value orientation, multiple growth motions, loop-designed revenue systems, structural alignment, and intelligence data. It's not the finish line. It's a design direction. You move toward it. You test and refine. You keep going. That's it for episode 3 of Commercial Transformation. Next episode, we will go into the human side of commercial change, because the architecture means nothing if the people aren't with you. We'll talk about how to bring commercial teams through transformation without losing the trust that makes the work possible. If this episode was useful, share it with someone who's working through a commercial architecture challenge right now. And if you want to go deeper on anything that we've covered today, you can find me on LinkedIn. It's simply Aidan Boyd, AIDENBOYD. Or reach out through our show notes. We'll stick some links in there as well to my LinkedIn and the website. See you on the next episode.
You've been listening to Commercial Transformation, produced by B10. If this episode was useful, follow the podcast for future conversations on building better commercial systems.